Coffee's up, and my cat won't let me into my favorite chair. That makes it Metal Bass Monday. So one of the most common topics I see in forums and things is strings. What composition, what gauges for what tuning, that kind of thing. And I see a lot of advice given out, and I don't think a lot of it really applies in the end, and that's why questions keep coming up. Strings are an incredibly individual thing. It's the most direct piece of contact for both hands to your instrument. To me, it's the most personal thing right after your actual instrument. You may like the way one string sounds, but you don't like the way it feels. You may like the way something feels, but not like the way it sounds. You may like how a certain string sounds in one gauge, but a gauge that's more appropriate, you may not like that one. So it takes a lot of experimentation, and I don't think you can find easy answers by just asking for advice. In the end, I think it's kind of fun to just go ahead and do that exploration and really kind of just start at zero. No preconceived notions, no ideas about this is what you have to do for this tuning or for this sound or that kind of thing. Just grab a few sets, a few different materials, try nickel, try stainless steel, that type of thing. And definitely, like I said, don't walk into something thinking this is my starting point because everybody tells me it is. A lot of times, you carving out your own sound means violating some of the so-called rules. When somebody gives you advice about strings, you have to remember they're not playing through your amp. They're not after the same sound. They don't play the same way you do. They don't have the same instruments, so they're getting a totally different result based on a ton of other factors. And it really may not apply to you. In all likelihood, it won't. My selection on strings violates most of what's kind of the in thing as far as strings right now. It seems like, especially when I read a lot of metal forums and things, guys are going for heavier and heavier gauge strings, trying to get better fundamentals, tighter low end, that type of thing. To me, for my playing style and my sound and the gear I use, really heavy strings sound like a sock full of oranges just getting thumped in a tub. It's just dead. It robs me of most of my attack, and I prefer medium gauge strings even when I tune down. I've gotten a lot of, kind of pushback on it, and guys going, you can't use a, 105 or a 110 or something for, C standard tuning or something like that. And they think it's absolutely insane that I use it. And then these guys also wind up private messaging me later and going, how did you get that sound out of that one demo? I can't get that same attack out of it or something. So it goes to show the common knowledge isn't always what's going to work out for you. And I've heard people who can use these massive, like telephone cable size strings that I can't imagine playing, and they get fantastic sounds, and it's because their gear is tuned for that type of thing. Secondary to that, it's not a hard and fast rule. I tend to use more medium gauge strings even when I down tune, but I got one type of string from a manufacturer, and I ordered it in my usual gauge wanting to check it out. And it sounded pretty good, but I felt like it needed a little bit more of something. So I went up 2 more gauges. I went from, I think it was a 106 all the way up to a 125. And that sounded amazing. I'd never heard a really heavy string that sounded that good or sounded more like what I wanted. So it was capable of a much brighter attack and much more colorful overtones like I'm used to getting out of medium, out of their super extra heavy. So even my own rules didn't apply from manufacturer to manufacturer. So it's really worth the investment of, I would usually go in the stages if you were trying to carve out your sound or find what's right for you, is figure out the fundamental of, are you more of a nickel person or a stainless steel person? It seems like there's 2 camps in there. Nickel has a certain sound and people will gravitate towards that. Stainless steel has another type of tone generally, and people will gravitate to that. I prefer stainless myself. It's just more angry sounding to me. But again, fantastic players like Dave Ellefson and stuff get really grinding tones out of nickel bass strings. So that's my personal preference, but try a fundamental set and see what flavor kind of goes with you there. Then go on to trying different gauges. Go on, try a lighter set, try a medium set, try a lower set, and see how it works in particular with your gear and your sound. And eventually you'll find what seems to work with you, what sounds good and feels good at the same time. And you'll be able to get it through your own gear and on your own bass. And yeah, it takes some time, but I kind of enjoy that exploration, knowing I'm going to end up at something that's individual to me and fits me perfectly, and not just something that I followed along with somebody and took their advice, and I'm just doing it kind of to follow along with what I think convention is. And that's going to lead us to topic number 2. Most of the advice you're going to get on internet forums about strings, or most gear for that matter, is crap. It really is kind of high school writ large on the internet. We tend to want to believe things because it's in print, and for some reason people seem to believe things that are in print. But you have to remember that most people on the opposite end of this are just feeding you crap for a lot of different reasons. Some of them don't even own the gear they're advocating for. It's just what's in at the moment, and they want to feel like they're part of that crowd. It's, oh man, you got to buy this amp. It's so cool. It's so awesome. Or they just watch the same YouTube demos you did, and they think it's cool and they wish they had it, so they want you to buy it so you can tell them more about it. Or they just want to be part of a club. Or sometimes they want to feel like they're more knowledgeable and have people look to them as some kind of authority on something that they have no experience of. The other is a lot of times that they'll be parroting the opinions of someone that they really respect or hero worship, and they kind of get off on that feeling of authority of, oh, I'm just like this person. I had this happen one time on a forum for production where a guy was arguing with me about bass, which I don't argue in forums, but he was just relentless and wouldn't let it go in this conversation I was having. And every one of his points that he kept pushing on me, I later found in an article that was an interview of the metal producer Andy Sneap, and it was almost like he must have had this thing pulled up on the other side of his screen and was just using all the talking points word for word from this article, and he had no real experience in it. He was just saying this because he was, stealing from Andy Sneap and trying to feel like an authority and probably had some hero worship, and he fought me tooth and nail about stuff he obviously had absolutely no understanding of. And I later find out, too, it's like a 15-year-old kid. Not that age is that big a deal, or, that somebody can't be knowledgeable at that age, but when you're arguing decades of experience in production, it's not something that you're really going to have at your fingertips when you haven't lived for decades. So you really can't trust a lot of what goes on, and you have to experiment for yourself, and that's the important part. Experiment for yourself. Just like with the strings, a lot of gear you're just going to have to go and test out, and not all gear is going to react the same way when you play it versus how somebody else plays it, how they mix it, how it fits into their band context. All of it's so much of a variable. And most of the advice you're going to get on these forums is going to be garbage. Sometimes it's garbage because they're just full of it, and some of it's garbage just because it doesn't apply to you, because what they do is something utterly different than what might address your particular needs. Now, one place you can go that's somewhat reliable is going to like YouTube gear demos and things like that. Of course, some of mine, why wouldn't you? But seriously, going to some of them where you can actually see the person playing the things, how they dial it in, how different is it from what you would do, hear their end sound, hear it in context. Is this the type of music you play? Would you put it in that way? That's one of the problems I even have, and one of the reasons why I started the channel was I didn't hear a lot of demos that would help me out as far as how metal sounded through a lot of bass gear that I really wanted to hear. And 2 was that I didn't see a lot of people who would dial it in the way I did. They had a good bass sound and everything, but I kept looking at all these videos and going, man, why does he keep the mids so low? Or, doesn't he realize he doesn't need all that top end that's cutting out this? it would drive me insane, and it wouldn't let me hear the gear the way I wanted to. So I decided to just start doing my own, and here we are. But it just kind of goes to show that at the end of the day, it's still an educated guess. But really beware of the information you're getting on forums and things, because again, a lot of it's crap, a lot of it's false bravado, and a lot of it just doesn't apply to you. So try it out. It's going to cost a little money, it's going to cost a little time, but that's why we're in this, right? We love it. We like to nerd out. We like to pick things apart. We like to kind of shake it up and see what we can get out of it. Go into it with the mindset not of, I want the easy answer. I want the preset. I want that sound. Show me how to get it as fast as possible. Grab the gear, start twisting knobs and go, what can I pull out of this? And can I surprise myself and get something interesting? And that's when you might find, like I have, a lot of gear that's kind of supposedly not in style or not the cool thing turns out to be the amazing thing. And because it's not in, you can get it on the cheap. I can't tell you how many amps I've bought, gadgets, effects, things like that, that people have passed by because it's not the hot thing right now. And I've bought it used for, next to nothing. People who just were dying to get rid of it and gave it to me for nothing. And then I've pulled amazing sounds out of it, and people are stunned by it and want to know where it came from. It came from the gear that wasn't in fashion and wasn't cool, and you passed up on it. So I came in and scooped it up, and that's where really original and fun ideas can come from. Now, if you want to see this kind of homogeny in action, just go on any bass forum, Facebook, any of the other internet forums even, and just ask, what's the best distortion for bass? And watch that you'll probably get one, maybe two answers. You'll get a couple other peppered in, but you're going to see the same answer over and over and over again. They'll probably tell you what the bass that you absolutely have to play through it is and what pickups. It'll all be the same. Same bass, same pickups, same distortion. Why is everybody recommending it? Does everybody have all this gear? No. Does everybody wish that they had it? Yeah, probably. And do they want to seem cool for recommending it because they don't have a personality or a character of their own and they want to make themselves feel better about having bought the same stuff everybody else did? Yeah, it's probably going to be it too. So have fun. Go out, try some stuff. Every once in a while, grab the thing that everybody says is garbage and try it out anyway. Make it a little prize or a task for yourself to pull the best possible sound you can out of something. And every once in a while, you're going to realize you pulled a diamond out of that lump of coal, and now you've got a secret. And don't let anybody else know how you got it, because then they're all going to jump on it, and you can see that cycle happen 100 times too. All of a sudden, somebody will discover one of these old pieces, and then everybody floods back to that one like that's going to make it original. That, oh, this piece of gear that we thought was crap, this authority said it's in now, so now we're all going to buy it up, and you see it go up on the used market, and now everybody's using that again. So sometimes you can't win, but explore, have fun, do cool stuff, and most of all, save some money. Buy things that are out of fashion and make it work. A lot of times I've been asked in the comment section what kind of effects I like for bass or what things I use besides just distortion, the most common. And without question, my favorite effect of all time is a phaser. I don't know why these don't get used more often. I've been a fan of phasers on bass since I first heard them. This is an awesome one Providence puts out, really rich and colorful. But I just absolutely have adored the sound for as long as I've been hearing it. You can go back to even the intro to like You're No Good from Van Halen. There's tons of examples of it, but I've always been kind of blown away at why when everybody hears phaser on bass, they go, oh my God, that's so cool. And they're really blown away by it. And then nobody really seems to follow through on it. It seems like an uncommon one. I hear chorus on bass, I hear modulator effects, all these type of things, but nothing really being taken advantage of on the phaser. And I don't know why. It's just such a really cool, rich individual sounding type of effect that tends to stand out and grab your ear as soon as you hear it. I really like it in combination too with drive. You can get these really almost part bass gurgling type of sounds mixed with old Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page kind of sounding things. Just really a fantastic effect. I've always liked it. I'm going to have a couple of things coming up and showing my pedal board and experimenting with some new sounds. There will definitely be phaser goodness to be had, so stick around for that one. So that's going to wrap up this week's Metal Bass Monday. Hit me up in the comments and let me know where you landed or where you're at in your journey kind of finding your strings, your sound, how it's affected, what you've gone through, and what seems like it really rhymed with you and what didn't. And have you found places where somebody's using a phaser on bass and I need to hear it? Because I need to hear a lot more of it. What players have you heard using it? Do you use it yourself? Got any clips of your own playing with it? Link it down below. Definitely love to see it. Also, coming up on Wednesday is the continuation of my conversation with Alfie of the channel Witch Bass on the evolution of rock and metal bass, starting from the 60s all the way into the current day. It's turning out to be a really interesting conversation. Episode 2 will be up on the channel on Wednesday. Definitely check in to see it, and pop in over at Alfie's channel to see episode 1. We're bouncing them back and forth in between our channels, so that's made it kind of interesting to expose the conversation to two different audiences and get some input and thoughts and ideas and involve everybody into the conversation about what brought us to where we are now. So hope to see you on that one too, and I will see you here again next week.